Right now, millions of retirees across the country are stretching every dollar. Grocery bills are higher, utilities cost more, Medicare premiums quietly eat into checks. And even though there was a COLA increase, many people still feel like their Social Security check isn't keeping up. If that sounds like you, you're not imagining it. But here's the part that may surprise you. Social Security has found a new way to pay some seniors more. And it didn't come through a big speech, a breaking headline, or a loud announcement from Washington. It happened quietly, inside the system, and if you're not paying attention, you could miss it. Now, before you get too excited, let me be very clear. This is not a brand new stimulus check. This is not Congress suddenly voting to double benefits overnight. And this is not something everyone qualifies for automatically, but it is real. And for the seniors it affects, it can mean more usable money each month without filing a new application, without calling nonstop, and without jumping through the usual hoops. That's why this matters, because Social Security didn't raise benefits the way it normally does. Instead, it adjusted how money flows through the system, and that difference is where the opportunity is. Most people think Social Security payments work in a simple way. You retire, you get a base benefit. Once a year, you get a COLA increase. End of story, but that's not the full picture. Behind every monthly deposit are layers of calculations, deductions, offsets, credits, thresholds, adjustments that most people never see unless something goes wrong. And for years, many of those calculations worked against seniors, especially those living on fixed incomes. What Social Security has been doing recently is re-examining parts of that system, not loudly, not publicly, but carefully. They're looking at how benefits were calculated years ago, how Medicare premiums interact with monthly checks, how income limits affect what seniors actually take home, and how small errors, outdated formulas, or old rules quietly reduced payments over time. That's where the change begins. Instead of announcing a big increase, Social Security has been correcting, adjusting, and recalculating certain benefits. And the result, for some seniors, is more money showing up in their account. Sometimes it looks like a slightly higher deposit. Sometimes it looks like a smaller deduction. Sometimes it looks like a correction spread out over several months. And sometimes it shows up without much explanation at all. That's why people are confused. Some seniors are logging into their accounts and noticing numbers that don't match what they expected. Others are opening letters that talk about adjustments or recalculations without clearly saying you're getting paid more. And that uncertainty creates fear. People worry. Is this a mistake? Will they ask for the money back? Did I do something wrong? So let me slow this down and say this clearly. What we're talking about here is not a trap. It's not a loan. And it's not Social Security being generous for no reason. It's Social Security correcting how benefits are delivered, especially for seniors who have been receiving payments for a long time, who rely heavily on those payments and whose finances are sensitive to even small changes. Now here's the important part. This doesn't affect everyone the same way. Some seniors will see a noticeable difference. Others may see only a small change, and some won't see anything yet, but still need to understand what's happening. Because this isn't just about today's payment. It's about how Social Security is handling benefit accuracy going forward. For years, the system focused on issuing payments on time. Now, it's also focusing on issuing them correctly. That shift matters. Because when you live on a fixed income, accuracy is everything. $10 more a month may not sound like much to someone working full-time, but to a retiree choosing between groceries and prescriptions, it matters. $20 or $30 can cover a utility bill, a copay, a tank of gas, and that's why this quiet change is bigger than it looks. But here's the truth that most headlines won't tell you. This is not automatic for everyone. Some seniors benefit because of how long they've been retired, some because of how their Medicare premiums are calculated, some because of old underpayments that are finally being corrected, and some because Social Security updated internal formulas that were never adjusted properly in the past. And unless you understand what changed, you won't know whether it applies to you. That's why in the next part, we need to talk about what actually changed inside Social Security in plain English and why it's happening now. Because once you understand that, you'll be able to tell whether this is something you should expect, something you should watch for, or something you should question. And most importantly, you'll stop being surprised by your own money. Now let's talk about what actually changed inside Social Security, because this is where things finally start to make sense. For most seniors, Social Security feels simple on the surface. You worked, you paid in, you retired, a check arrives every month, maybe it goes up a little each year with COLA, and that's it. But behind that deposit is a system that is far more complicated than most people realize. Every single payment is affected by multiple moving parts at the same time. Your original benefit calculation, your retirement age, your earnings history, Medicare premiums, income thresholds, and rules that were written years, sometimes decades ago. And here's the truth most people were never told. Those rules don't always age well. Some of them were designed for a very different economy, some were never updated properly, and some created situations where seniors were quietly receiving less than they should have. Not because anyone did something wrong, but because the system kept moving while the rules stayed stuck. That's what Social Security has started to address, not with a loud announcement, but with internal changes. Over the last year, the Social Security Administration has been reviewing how certain benefits are calculated and delivered, especially for long-term beneficiaries. These are people who have been on Social Security for many years, whose payments have gone through multiple COLA increases, Medicare changes, and rule adjustments. And when you stack all of that together, small inaccuracies can turn into meaningful losses over time. So instead of rewriting the law, Social Security focused on something else. Accuracy. They began correcting how certain deductions are applied, how adjustments are calculated, and how different programs interact with each other. One of the biggest areas this affects is Medicare. Most seniors don't see their full Social Security benefit because a portion is deducted for Medicare Part B premiums. Those premiums change. Income thresholds change, and for years, some people paid more than they should have because of outdated income data or delayed adjustments. Social Security has been tightening that process. That means in some cases, seniors are now seeing smaller deductions, not because Medicare got cheaper, but because the system finally caught up and applied the correct rules. Another area involves benefit recalculations. If you worked additional years after first becoming eligible, or if your earnings record was incomplete or outdated at the time your benefits were calculated, Social Security may now be correcting that. When that happens, the base benefit doesn't always get a flashy label like increase. Instead, it shows up as a quiet adjustment. A few more dollars here. A correction spread over several payments, or a retroactive amount that's paid out slowly. That's why some seniors are confused. They look at their benefit letter and see words like recalculation, adjustment, or payment correction, but they don't see a clear explanation, and that creates anxiety. So let me say this clearly. These changes are not random. They are not mistakes, and they are not Social Security being careless. They are the result of the agency trying to make sure people are paid what they are actually entitled to. no more and no less. Now, before you get too excited, here's the part you really need to understand. This is not a universal raise. Not every senior will see an increase. Some people will see no change at all, and some may only notice a small difference that's easy to miss. But for the people it does affect, the impact is real because it changes how much money you actually have available each month. And there's another reason this is happening now: pressure. Social Security is under intense pressure to improve accuracy. Lawmakers, inspectors, and auditors have all pointed out that payment errors, especially underpayments, hurt seniors the most. So instead of waiting for complaints, the system is being cleaned up from the inside, quietly, carefully. And that's why you're hearing about this through changes in your bank account, not through breaking news alerts. Now, here's where this becomes personal, because the next question isn't what Social Security changed. The real question is whether you are one of the people who benefits from it, and that depends on your situation, how long you've been retired, how your Medicare premiums are calculated, whether your benefits were ever underpaid in the past, and whether recent adjustments finally corrected something that was off for years. Now, let's talk about who this actually helps, because this is where it stops being abstract and starts becoming personal. Not every senior will see a change, and that's important to say up front. But there are specific groups of people who are far more likely to benefit from what Social Security is doing right now. And if you fall into one of these categories, you should be paying very close attention to your monthly payments. First, long-term retirees. If you've been receiving Social Security for many years, your benefit has gone through multiple COLA increases, Medicare premium changes, and rule updates. Over time, those layers can create gaps between what the system assumes and what's actually correct. That's where adjustments tend to show up. Seniors who retired a decade ago or more are some of the most likely to see quiet corrections, simply because their benefits have been touched by so many moving parts over the years. Second, seniors whose income has stayed low or moderate. If Social Security makes up most or all of your income, small changes matter more. And those are exactly the cases the system has been reviewing closely. Many of the recent adjustments are tied to income thresholds, premium protections, and benefit interactions that affect lower income seniors disproportionately. That's why some people are seeing slightly higher deposits, even though there was no new public increase announced. Third, seniors affected by Medicare premium changes. This one catches people off guard. Your Social Security check is often reduced by Medicare Part B premiums. Those premiums are based on income and adjusted over time. If your income dropped or if past income was misapplied, you may have been paying more than required. When the system corrects that, the change doesn't come labeled as a raise. It shows up as more money left in your check. And for many seniors, that feels like a surprise increase, because functionally, that's exactly what it is. Fourth, seniors who were underpaid in the past. This is one of the quietest but most important parts of what's happening. If your benefits were ever calculated using incomplete earnings records, outdated information, or old formulas, Social Security may now be correcting that. Sometimes that results in a small retroactive payment. Sometimes it's spread out over several months, and sometimes it's just baked into future checks. That's why some people are noticing changes without getting a clear explanation. Now, let's talk about how this actually shows up in real life. Most people expect a benefit increase to look dramatic. A big letter, a bold number, a clear headline saying your benefit went up. That's not how this works. For many seniors, the change looks subtle. Your deposit is a little higher than last month. Your Medicare deduction is a little smaller. Your net payment doesn't match what you memorized years ago, and that creates confusion. Some people think it's a mistake. Others worry they'll have to pay it back. So let me be very clear here. If the change is coming from Social Security and reflected in official statements, it is not a scam. It is not an overpayment error in the usual sense, and it does not automatically mean trouble. These are system-driven adjustments. That said, you still need to be smart. Always read any letter you receive. Always compare your benefit statement month to month, and always make sure changes align with official notices, not phone calls, emails, or messages asking for personal information. Now, here's another important truth. Some seniors won't see anything yet. That doesn't mean they never will. These adjustments are happening in waves. Some are tied to individual records, some depend on when reviews are completed, and some take time to fully process. That's why you may hear a friend or family member say their check changed while yours stayed the same. Timing matters, records matter, and individual circumstances matter. But the bigger picture is this. Social Security is shifting from a one-size-fits-all approach to a more precise one. Instead of only increasing benefits across the board once a year, the system is correcting how benefits are delivered on a case-by-case basis. And that's a big change, because precision helps seniors on fixed incomes more than blanket increases ever could. Now, before we move on, there's one more thing you need to understand. This is not a one-time cleanup. This is an ongoing process, and what happens next is just as important as what's already happened. Because the way Social Security handles these adjustments going forward will determine how stable your benefits are in the future. Now let's talk about what happens next. And this is the part that should actually give you peace of mind. What Social Security is doing right now is not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing effort to make sure benefits are accurate, fair, and aligned with real life. That means reviews will continue, records will keep being updated, and some seniors may see changes later, not all at once. So if your check hasn't changed yet, don't panic. It doesn't mean you were missed, it doesn't mean you did something wrong, and it doesn't mean nothing is coming. What it does mean is that the system works in stages. Here's what you should do right now. First, pay attention to your monthly deposits. Not obsessively, just enough to notice patterns. If your check is a little higher or your deduction is a little smaller, take note. Second, read every letter from Social Security carefully, even the boring ones, especially the ones that mention adjustments, recalculations, or payment changes. Those words matter. Third, protect yourself. Social Security will not call you demanding information. They will not text you for bank details. Any real change will show up in your official statement first, and most importantly, stay calm. These adjustments are not about taking money away. They are about making sure seniors receive what they are actually entitled to. When you've worked your whole life and paid into the system, accuracy isn't a bonus. It's a right. Even small improvements can make a real difference when you're living on a fixed income. A few extra dollars each month can mean less stress, fewer trade-offs, and more stability. That's why staying informed matters. If you want to keep understanding what's changing, how it affects your money, and what to watch for next, make sure you're subscribed. This is where we break things down clearly, calmly, and honestly. You earned these benefits. You deserve clarity, and staying informed is how you protect your future.